In the last year, enterprise businesses spent on average 8.6% more on ads, while their revenue fell on average by 1.2%. This doesn't mean that the market is slowing down. That means that the market is shifting, and it's shifting towards specialists. So if you're running an agency or any B2B service business and you're competing on prices, it will get harder. And this video is exactly for you. I'm going to show you my 4-dimension framework on how to stop competing on prices, which I used it for the first time over 10 years ago with my first bigger business. And we went from 1 employee, which was me, to 15 people in 16 months, helping clients all over the world, from UK, from United States, from Europe, Australia, China. And we grew by using this exact framework, which we will cover today. If we haven't met before, I'm Yuri Wojcicki from NinjaBot, where we help businesses with RevOps automations and AI systems. And in the last 5 years, we've helped over 300 businesses and we've implemented thousands of automations. But before NinjaBot, I had another business. It was called BlackTech and it was web development studio. So it started when I was 24. I was a student and I was developing websites. That was the way how I was making money. And I was doing general web development for anyone who asked. So if someone came to me and asked for a website, I did a website for them. If they asked me to do a blog, I did a blog for them. I was doing whatever came in just to make some money as a student. And it worked. I had some little money, but it didn't compound. It all changed when I decided to specify 4 things, which we'll cover today, which unlocked the rapid growth of the business. The problem with many agencies is that the way how they think about their specialization is that they say, we do SEO, or we do UX, or we do web design. But this is not a specialization, this is a description of what they do. A client looking for a solution sees a dozen of different companies doing exactly the same thing. And especially if the client doesn't really understand the specifics of the technology, for them, it's all web developers. So what they do is they compare prices. So they ask 5 studios, they pick 3 or 4 which they prefer, they ask them for the prices, and then they negotiate the price down. So what you do as an agency owner is that you have to compress your margins just to compete on the market. The problem is that the services that you provide are becoming a commodity. Your services are being commoditized. So if the client doesn't really understand the technology too much, then they're deciding mainly on the price. What you do as an agency owner is that you have to decrease the price just to stay competitive on the market. Your margins decrease, your team is overloaded, and you need to hire more and more people just to get your margins, just to get some profits. And what they often do is that they try to solve it by more marketing. So they spend a lot of money on marketing, trying to get more leads, and they hope that this will solve their issue by having more clients than to have enough profits to run the business. The problem is not the marketing. The problem is that in the eyes of the client, you're being a commodity. You're providing the same service as everyone else. They're just choosing based on the price. The true problem is not number of leads. The true problem is that the services that you provide are being commoditized. And when I was reading the Foxwell 2026 study about agencies, it exactly confirmed what I thought, that 50% of agencies are already moving into vertical specialization because the trend is there. The ones who move, the ones who do specialize in something on a vertical, they are the ones who will win the market, especially in the time when AI will be recommending solutions to clients. Because as you know, it's more and more important to be recommended by AI. And AI is not recommending generally, it's not recommending you 10 pages of solutions like Google did. It's recommending you 1, 2, maybe 3 suppliers that you should choose from. And the way how LLMs are doing that is that they are looking at your niche, they are looking at your specialization, and based on that, they are recommending you based on the specific needs of the clients. So in simple terms, what's happening on the market is that it's divided between 2 groups. There are big companies who are providing a lot of services to big names, to Fortune 500 companies, which they need to buy from one big provider, which serves as a holding company for all the services. But on the other side are very narrowly focused businesses and sometimes even freelancers who understands their clients' issues and problems very well and have very specific solutions for this. And what's interesting is that groups on both sides are actually increasing in size, and what's squeezing is the middle in between. So you either have to be a giant or you have to be very specialized boutique business. So which side are you on? You have to ask this question, because if you're on neither of them, then very quickly you will be pushed out of the market. And the vertical specialization is not just about what you're doing, but it's mainly about who are you doing it for. And this is the most common misunderstanding of the concept. Because yes, you can be very specific about what you do, but understanding your client, understanding their problems, their needs, and having the solutions ready for them creates bigger trust, better outputs and results for your clients, and it means that you can charge more for the services you do because you increase the probability of success of the project. Thus, you're being a better bet for your client than someone else who can charge less money, but the probability that the project will be a success is lower than working with you. And this is your big advantage. So the difference is not in the service, the difference is in the client. Let's go now through all the 4 dimensions and the way how I define them on BlackTech, which enable the rapid growth of the agency. So the dimension number 1 is industry. I was very specific about the thing that we were selling, and we were selling web apps, not websites, not SEO, not branding. We were focusing on web apps, which is a very narrow market. If we're talking about websites, there are thousands of developers, there are thousands of studios and agencies and freelancers who can do that. But web apps is something else. It's more complicated to build web app. You need to understand all the nuances of web apps. You need to have more sophisticated technology, and you need to understand the nuances like user onboarding, content management system, user roles and permissions, and stuff like that. Because we narrowed down into the specific of web apps, we've enabled ourselves to understand better this market. Thanks to that, we were able to build the know-how, to build the knowledge on how to do this, how to understand these nuances. When clients came to us and they didn't know how to solve them, they didn't even know that they have these problems or that they will have these problems, but we knew it in advance. So we could help them to avoid mistakes and pitfalls before it even happened. The dimension number 2 is audience. Who are you doing this for? In BlackTech, we made a decision to make this international, provide services to clients not just in Czech Republic, which we came from, but to whole Europe, to United States, to Australia, to China, which enabled us to have higher margins than what we would be able to have on Czech market. And this is called pricing arbitrage. So it means you're buying somewhere where it's cheaper and selling it somewhere else where it's more expensive. So when you're selling something to someone, you have to be picky about who is the target audience, because there may be people who needs your solution much more and they are willing to pay you more, or they have more money to pay you for your solution. There is a beautiful example which happened to me when I was living in Thailand. So I was sitting in the immigration office. I had to complete my files, and there was a lot of people. It was during COVID. So there was hundreds of people sitting there. The weather was super hot. Everyone was sweating, and there was no water. There was no shop with water. You couldn't buy any there. So if you didn't have water with you, you were sitting there thirsty, sitting for hours, and you didn't know when you will go inside, so you had to wait there. And just across the street, 300 meters away, there was 7-Eleven. You could buy ice cold water, but no one could go there because they couldn't leave the immigration office. So now imagine that you go to the 7-Eleven, you buy 50 bottles of this water for 20 cents, and you go to the immigration water and you can sell it for $2. And you can do this twice a day. You just go for 50 bottles of water, you bring it to the immigration office, you sell it there, and you've made your money. I don't want to say that this is the way how you should make money, but the whole idea is that there may be people who are thirsty and they are willing to pay you 10 times more for something that they could buy themselves somewhere else. But the situation that they are in right now, they are willing to pay you 10 times more just because you're doing something that has a lot of value for them. You are providing value by giving them something at the right time, at the right place. And this is exactly the concept that you should use in the business. Don't sell water in 7-Eleven. Sell water on the desert to people who are thirsty, who need your water, because they are willing to pay you much more and your margins will increase. And this is a very similar concept of pricing arbitrage. We were selling something on the market where buyers had more money to pay us than on our local market. The dimension number 3 is the problem. You need to understand very well the problems of your buyers. Because if you understand the problems really well, then you can provide them with the better solutions to their problems. So let me explain it on Black Tech again. The problems that our buyers had was that they were building web apps. It was very important for them, for these apps, to be easy to use. If you're deploying web app to your customers and it's not easy to use, they will stop using that. You know, these apps, when you open them and it's overwhelming, so you just stop using them because it's too difficult to use them. This is exactly what we were focusing on. Not to make these apps too complicated, to make them intuitive, to make them very easy to use. And not just that, we were also making them really beautiful. When we've made a beautiful web app and we've showed it to a client, they were satisfied, users were delighted to use them. But we also took the designs of these web apps and then we showed it to new prospects, to new potential clients, and they were happy about these designs, so they wanted to buy immediately, just because it was beautiful. And this was exactly the problem that they had. Many companies were focusing on the technology, to have the best technology, to have the newest technology, to have the fastest websites. But we were focusing on user experience and the way how it was very easy for users to work with these apps. As you can see, the key to growth was not sales volume. It was the compounding of our know-how and the proof of our services. The clients who came for web app development, they wanted more. They wanted hosting, they wanted service upkeep, they wanted branding or microsites. So the secondary offering was completely natural and it was built on the gravity of the vertical. And every sale, every successful client was making every next sale even easier because we had a better portfolio, we had more results. And when clients saw that we had these successes before, they were trusting us with their projects even more. More proof, more likelihood of getting a referral, and naturally a bigger pricing authority. So we could charge even more. As you can see, this is a compounding growth engine. When you focus on one thing and you get better results, it naturally makes your business grow better. So now you know how the framework works. But how can you make sure that the vertical that you're about to choose is the right one for your business? Let's look at that. Not every vertical is viable for your business. So before you commit to this vertical, you have to test it out. And here's the way how I do that. It's 3 things that must be true. The test number 1 is if there is already a community for this vertical. This is very important for you to be able to reach out to this community, to reach out to these businesses, which will be your clients in the future. So is there a Facebook community, a LinkedIn community? Are there some events that this group of businesses are attending or people are attending? Are there any publications that they read? Because if the community doesn't exist, then it will be very difficult for you to reach out to these people. And this is exactly the mistake that I did with NinjaBot unknowingly. When we started NinjaBot at the beginning, we're starting too soon on the market because there were only few people who were thinking ahead about how to use no-code, how to use low-code in terms of process automation and AI implementations in their businesses. Because 5 years, 6 years ago, nobody was thinking about it. And for me, it was such a clear thing that everyone needs it. It's so important for businesses to systematize their processes and then to optimize them using digital tools and using automations and integrations. It was so obvious to me. But what was not obvious to me was that there were no groups. At that time, we were focusing on Czech market and there were no groups of people who were focusing on this. There was one event and that was it. So I underestimated this as a very important thing. How are you going to reach out to your target audience? The test number 2 is if the problem that they have is recurring. And this is very important. This is another mistake that I did in my previous years. And that's if you have a business problem, which is a one-time problem, and your customer doesn't come back regularly, then it means that if you sell them something, then it's done. Your lifetime value is basically capped with this one-time payment. So your customer acquisition costs, the cost that you have to acquire this new customer, have to fit perfectly with the lifetime value that you generate just from this one purchase. On the other hand, if you have problems that are recurring, if you have problems that they happen every year, every quarter, or even every month or week, this will enable you to create a compound on the lifetime value of your clients. So it means If you have an automation which needs to run every month, then I can sell it as a recurring model because it needs to happen every month, right? So what will happen is that in the beginning, I don't have to be profitable from day one with this client, but slowly I'm compounding more and more buying opportunities from this client, and the lifetime value grows. So the whole business model will work better. And the test number 3 is if there is a premium which you can charge for solving this problem. If you're niching down, if you're choosing your vertical and you're choosing the market where you can easily reach out to them, you're choosing the problems that they need to solve them regularly, but they don't have enough money for these solutions and they still squeeze your margins too low, then you didn't really escape the problems which you're trying to solve with the vertical. You still have to be able to address the market which has enough money for you to have healthy margins for your business. And what always helps me, if I have to recommend someone what to choose, what niche to choose, or vertical to choose, there's one question that will always help you. When you look at the whole portfolio of all your clients, and you have to close all the segments. You have to stop providing to all the segments and you have to choose just one. Which of them is the right one? Which of them would you choose as the only audience that you will help from now on? The answer to this question is the candidate for your vertical. You take this candidate for your vertical and you run it through all the 4 dimensions, through industry, audience, problem, and proof. When you build all these 3, you continue with 3 tests. So you test if there is a community, if there is a recurring problem, and if there is a premium that you can charge. If it passes all these 4 dimensions and 3 tests, then perfect. You have a great candidate and you can move on. If not, then you have a clear, specific guide what to focus on because you know exactly where it broke and this is exactly what you want to fix. And now you may ask, okay, Yuri, if I do this, then I will lose a lot of clients because if I specialize only on this one vertical, then I will lose all the other clients. And I hear this constantly. It's a legitimate fear. But here's the thing. Your vertical specialization doesn't mean that you have to reject everything else. Just the way how at BlackTech, we were still providing branding and websites and SLA and hosting. We're still providing this, but it was not the thing that we were mainly talking about. It was not the thing that we were mainly selling. It was not the thing that our website was about or our posts were about this. It was a secondary offering, but the primary offering was very clear. And this will enable you to charge for the premiums. What you're afraid of is that you will lose clients who are not perfect fit for you. Okay, maybe you will lose some, but what you will gain is that the clients that will go for you, you can charge more, you will build the know-how, and based on that, you will have even better results for them. And the risk if you don't do that is that you will commoditize your services and it will just push the prices lower and lower until your business will run out of business. And as I said in the beginning, 50% of agencies are already doing this change. They're already moving into vertical specialization. So the window is open and it's time to do it now. And when I talk to businesses and I ask them, if you had to choose one vertical, which one would it be? Very often they know the answer or they know few answers and we just help them to choose the right one. But with this framework that I shared with you today, it will be much easier to navigate which one is the right one, and to find all the specifics, how to make it even better and more clear what is your vertical. If this topic feels relevant to you, you can subscribe to Future Brief, which is my newsletter, or you can subscribe to this channel, like and share, and I will be happy to see you here next time. So until then, build with calm.